The Ten Commandments dramatizes the biblical story of the life of Moses, an adopted Egyptian prince who becomes the savior of his true brothers, the enslaved Jews, and then leads the Exodus to Mount Sinai, where he receives the Ten Commandments from God. Filmed on location in Egypt, Mount Sinai, and the Sinai Peninsula. The Ten Commandments is Cecil DeMille's most successful work, his first feature film, his fourth biblical production, and his last directorial work before his death in 1959. It is a remake of the prologue of his 1923 silent film of the same title and featured one of the largest exterior sets ever created for motion picture. The special photographic effects in the Ten Commandments were created by John Fulton, ASC, who won an Academy Award for his effects in the film. Head of Special Effects at Paramount Pictures. Assisted by Paul Lerpai, ASC in optical photography, blue screen, travel matte, composites, and Farcho Eduart, ASC, in process photography, rear projection effects. Fulton's effects include the building of the Jubilee City of the Treasures of Seti, the burning bush, the hail of fire from a cloudless sky, the angel of death, the constituent elements of the Exodus, the pillar of fire, the giving of the Ten Commandments, and the tour de force, the parting of the Red Sea. The parting of the Red Sea is considered to be the most difficult special effect ever performed up to that time. This effect took about 6 months to shoot on VistaVision and combined scenes shot on the shores of the Red Sea in Egypt with scenes shot at Paramount Studios in Hollywood on a huge water tank, divided by a U-shaped trough into which approximately 360,000 gallons of water were discharged from the side, as well as the filming of a giant waterfall, also built on the back lot of the Paramount, to create the effect of the walls of the divided sea by the stormy back-flushing. All of the shot's many elements were then combined in Paul Lerpai's optical printer, and Jan DeMille's matte rock paintings hid the matte lines between the real elements and the special effects elements. Parting the Red Sea is considered by many to be one of the greatest special effects of all time. Unlike the technique used by ILM for Raiders of the Lost Ark and Poltergeist to inject poster paints into a glass tank containing an inversion layer of salt water, the cloud effects for the Ten Commandments were formed with Brit's white smoke shot against a translucent sky background, and colors are added optically. Striking portraits of Charlton Heston as Moses and 3 women in front of threatening clouds were shot by Wallace Kelly, ASC in Farcho Eduart's process department, rear projection, in scenes that are still considered unforgettable. DeMille uses these scenes to break up the montage, framing his subjects like a Renaissance master. DeMille is reluctant to discuss the technical details of how the film was made, particularly the optical tricks used in parting the Red Sea. It was eventually revealed that the footage of the Red Sea had been combined with film footage, reversed, of water pouring out of large U-shaped travel tanks placed at the back of the studio. The voice of God in the burning bush scene was provided by Charlton Heston, but the voice of God in the giving of the plate scene was provided by a deep bass voice actor, Jesse de los Dukes, who was a member of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Additionally, Duke's voice was enhanced through the use of a Vox Humane stop on the Salt Lake Tabernacle organ. DeMille, who was good friends with LDS Church President David Mackay, asked and received permission to record the organ from Mackay. The music for the Ten Commandments was composed and conducted by Elmer Bernstein. DeMille initially hired Bernstein, then a relatively unknown film composer, to write and record only the diegetic music needed for the film's dance scenes and other on-screen musical passages, with the intention of hiring frequent collaborator Victor Young to write the proper score. However, Young turned down the assignment due to his own failing health, prompting DeMille to hire Bernstein to write the underline as well. In total, Bernstein composed 2.5 hours of music for the film, writing for a full symphony orchestra augmented with various ethnic and unusual instruments such as the shofar, tipple, and theremin. The music is written in a highly romantic style, featuring unique musical leitmotifs for the film's characters: God, Moses, Ramses, Nefertiti, Dathan, Sephora, Lelia, Joshua, and others, used in a manner inspired, at DeMille's direction, from operatic scores of Richard Wagner. Bernstein recorded both the diegetic music and the score at the Paramount Studios recording stage in sessions spread from April 1955 to August 1956. A double LP mono soundtrack album was released in 1957 by Dot Records, using excerpts from the original film recordings. A stereo version of the 1957 album was released in 1960, containing new recordings conducted by Bernstein, as the original film recordings, although recorded in 3-channel stereo, were not properly balanced for an LP stereo release, as the intention at the time on the record was to mix the film masters in mono for the film soundtrack itself. This recording was later released on CD by MCA Classics in 1989. For the film's 10th anniversary, United Artists Records issued a second stereo re-recording in 1966, also conducted by Bernstein and using different orchestral arrangements unique to this release. For the film's 60th anniversary in 2016, Intrada Records released a 6-CD album of the score. The Intrada edition contains the complete 2.5 hours of music as originally recorded by Bernstein, much of it remixed in true stereo for the first time. Additionally, the 2016 edition contains all the diegetic music recorded for the film, the original 1957 album, mono, the 1960 album, in stereo, and the 1966 United Artists album, as well as a 12-minute recording of Bernstein auditioning his thematic ideas for DeMille on the piano. The set won the IFMCA Award for Best New Archive Release, Reissue or Re-recording of Existing Music. Cecil DeMille promoted the film by placing Ten Commandments monuments as a publicity stunt for the film in cities across the United States. The Ten Commandments premiered at the Criterion Theater in New York on November 8, 1956. Among those attending the premiere were Cecil B. DeMille and his oldest child, Cecilia DeMille Harper. Charlton Heston and his wife Lydia Clark, Yul Brynner, Anne Baxter, Edward G. Robinson, Yvonne De Carlo and her husband Bob Morgan, Martha Scott and her husband Mel Powell and son Carlton Alsop, William Holden and his wife Brenda Marshall, John Wayne and his wife Pilar Pallett, Tony Curtis and his wife Janet Leigh, and Paramount Pictures president Barney Balaban. It was played on a reserved-seat roadshow basis until mid-1958, when it finally went into general release. The Ten Commandments were reissued in 1966 and 1972, and once again in 1989. The 1972 and 1989 reissues featured 70mm and 35mm prints, which changed the aspect ratio to 2.20:1 and 2.20:1, respectively. 2.39:1, cropping the top and bottom of the original 1.85:1 aspect ratio. These orders were issued on DVD on March 30, 1999, March 9, 2004, as a special collector's edition, and March 29, 2011 as special edition and standard edition. The Ten Commandments received a 4K UHD Blu-ray release on March 30, 2021. The Ten Commandments was the highest-grossing film of 1956 and the second most successful film of the decade. By April 1957, the film had earned an unprecedented $10 million from engagements in just 80 theaters, an average of about $1 million a week, with over 7 million people paying to see it. It ran for 70 weeks at the Criterion Theater in New York, grossing $2.7 million. During its initial release, it earned theatrical rentals, the distributor's share of the box office gross, of $31.3 million in North America and $23.9 million from foreign markets. For a total of $55.2 million, equivalent to approximately $122.7 million in ticket sales. It was extremely profitable for its era, earning a net profit of $18,500,000 against a production budget of $13.27 million, the most a film had cost up to that point. By the time of its withdrawal from distribution in late 1960, The Ten Commandments had overtaken Gone with the Wind at the box office in North America and posed a serious challenge in the global market. Gone with the Wind's worldwide gross was reported at $59 million at the time. Gone with the Wind will be re-released next year as part of the centennial of the American Civil War and will confirm its dominance at the box office by reclaiming the record in the U.S. Also around this time, Ben-Hur, another biblical epic starring Charlton Heston, released in late 1959, would eclipse the Ten Commandments at the box office. A 1966 re-release grossed $6 million. And further re-releases brought the total in U.S. theaters to $43 million, equating to a box office gross of $89 million. Worldwide, it eventually grossed $90,066,230 by 1979. It remains one of the most popular films ever made. Adjusted for inflation, it has earned a box office gross equivalent to $2 billion in 2011 prices, according to Guinness World Records. Only Gone with the Wind, 1939, Avatar, 2009, Star Wars, 1977, Titanic, 1997, The Sound of Music, 1965, and E.T. the Extraterrestrial, 1982, have grossed higher in constant dollars. The Ten Commandments is estimated to have sold 262 million tickets at the worldwide box office. Critics have argued that significant liberties were taken with the biblical story of Exodus, which compromised the film's claims to authenticity. But neither this nor its nearly 4-hour length affected its popularity. For example, many of the alleged inaccuracies were actually adopted by DeMille from extra-biblical ancient sources, such as Josephus, Sefer HaJashar, and the Chronicle of Moses. Moses' career in Ethiopia, for example, is based on the Midrash, the original layer of the Talmud. For decades, screenings of the Ten Commandments were a popular fundraiser among revivalist Christian churches, while the film was equally prized by moviegoers for DeMille's thousands approach and heroic acting. Martin Scorsese later said it was one of his favorite films, writing in 1978 that, "I like DeMille, his theatricality, his images. I've seen the Ten Commandments maybe 40 or 50 times. Forget the story. You have to, and concentrate on the special effects, texture and color. For example, the figure of God killing the firstborn is green smoke. Then on the terrace while they are talking, green dry ice just touches the heel of George Reeves or someone else and he dies. Then there is the Red Sea Scroll and the blood of the Passover lamb." DeMille brought a fantastical, dreamlike quality to film that was so Metallica were inspired to write their inspired hit, Creeping Death, inspired by the 10th plague of Egypt, after watching the second half of the film. While watching the scene of the final plague killing every Egyptian firstborn child, then bassist Cliff Burton remarked, "Wow. It's like Creeping Death," as the plague was represented by a fog rolling into the pharaoh's palace in the film. The band liked the sound of "Creeping Death" and decided to write a song about the epidemics, using the phrase as the title. The song's chorus also uses the famous line featured in the film, "So let it be writing, so let it be done." Leonard Maltin, contemporary film critic, gave the film 4 out of 4 stars and described it as lively storytelling at its best. The parting of the Red Sea. The writing of the sacred tablets are unforgettable moments. Critic Camille Paglia called the Ten Commandments one of the 10 greatest films of all time. Rotten Tomatoes retrospectively collected 45 reviews and reported that 84% of critics gave the film a positive review, with an average rating of 7.7 out of 10. The site's critics' consensus reads, "Bombastic and occasionally silly, but extravagantly entertaining, Cecil DeMille's star-studded performance is a muscular retelling of the great Bible story. So it was written, so it shall be done."